Gabby tells me I'm picky, and like I say the same thing. I'm like, no, I know what I want. Like,
it's not
down to like, it's not just clothes. It's also food.
Yeah.
It's also like places I want to go, people I want to be around.
Specific.
It's specific. That's right.
It's not picky. I tell the people all the time when they look at homes. It's like, you're not picky. You just know what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, it's also being a man.
Yeah, I think so.
Women go to
I think so.
they go to Target, and Target tells them what they want.
It's so like Gabby too. She's like, we'll walk into a Nike store and she knows what she's looking for. She's not open to like options. She's like blazers, dunks, and then if we're going to like the Van store, she knows the exact style of Van that she likes, and then she's open to like the colors, and that's pretty much it. But you're right, like she gets packages from Target all the time. The hell is this time?
And I love Target. I go to Target all the fucking time.
One of the biggest ways that you can impact people in your daily life and routine is just the way that you treat them, negatively or positively. And that's some of the things that we talk about with Jeff Lyons on the podcast today on this episode. I'm really excited to have Jeff. Jeff's a really good friend of mine. He actually helped us find our new home that we live in Cedar Lake now, and then sell our previous home. And we got a really, really good paycheck on that one. And that's all thanks to Jeff. We actually talk about that transaction here, and it's a good basis for the episode because there was like literally everything that could go wrong with selling our house. Not buying, like the buying was fine, but everything that could go wrong with selling our house went wrong. And it lasted like almost 3 months. But one of the reasons we hired Jeff is because we knew that he could handle those types of situations. He gave an example about in his previous life before being a real estate agent. He talked about how he was a poker dealer at a casino that's local here. And he talked about how sometimes people would, if you're playing poker and you do a certain hand motion or whatever, then the dealer will give you a card and that sort of thing. But what if they did something that wasn't indicating they wanted a new card, that they were just kind of like twitching or whatever? Jeff accidentally gives them a card and they freak out. Well, he would just talk about like, hold on, let me get the manager. Let me make sure that we talk this out. We'll get things figured out. And that's one of the things that he talks about a lot, is being able to calm certain situations down to positively impact a negative situation. That's extremely important, like in your day-to-day life. How easy is it for us to be able to, we're driving on the road and then someone cuts us off and then we flip them off, honk our horn and, curse at them and all that kind of stuff. But what if they're on their way to the hospital and they're in a rush because, the wife's in labor or, something really bad happened and there's an emergency? We never know what happens with that kind of thing. Obviously, I'm not talking about how allowing people to kind of trample over you through life, but escalating a negative situation in most cases is not the right answer. So we talk about that a lot with Jeff. Jeff is personally somebody that I know. I even start the podcast out this way. He's somebody that is the kindest, most tenderhearted person that I have ever met. And if you are friends with him, then you are friends with him. Like, he will bend over backwards. Just literally yesterday, we were having issues with putting our fence in our backyard. And 2.5 years after the transaction of buying our house, I messaged Jeff and said, hey, there's something wrong with this survey that we got on our land for the fencing. What do you think we should do? And he just laid it all out. He gave me advice, talked on a phone call with me, and that's just the type of person he is. So I'm really excited to have Jeff on the show today. He is the broker owner of the Lyons Group, real estate brokerage that's local to Northwest Indiana. His office is out in Valparaiso, Indiana, maybe about 45 minutes from Chicago in Northwest Indiana. But if you're ever in the market that you need to buy or sell a house, make sure you do hit him up, thelyonsgroup.com. Very reputable organization, and Jeff runs a really, really great company. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a hilarious guy. He's all tatted up just like me, so you're going to love it. So I'm really excited to bring you my friend Jeff Lyons on the show. He's going to bring a lot of value, give a lot of really good stories, possibly even some laughs. So you guys make sure you enjoy the show, and we'll see you guys soon. All right, this is the Impact Network, and I'm your host, Josh Culler. Today, I have my very, very good friend, Jeff Lyons, with the Lyons Group, broker owner of the Lyons Group, a real estate brokerage out of Northwest Indiana, in Valparaiso, Indiana. And Jeff's a very good friend of mine. Oh my goodness, we've only known each other not that long. It's only been maybe 5 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that.
Yeah, 5 years.
If you didn't live so far away, we'd hang out more.
Yeah.
but that's okay. You're rooted.
Strategically,
You
moved you to Secret Lake
That's right.
so we can still be close.
Which we're gonna. Hey, be prepared. We're gonna talk about today.
Oh, God. You said good.
Have the scars healed?
Almost made me quit.
Have the scars healed?
No, there's no scars because I just buried it. It's like
Okay, gotcha. You buried the hatchet.
And then somebody, no, I repressed the memory.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, somebody brought it up the other day, and I was like, it was like,
we're not talking about. We don't talk about that
I'm
anymore.
talking about.
So Jeff, I think we met through social media as I was tracking back, and obviously, like I said, I think it's been 4.5-ish years. It was like right when I went into business full time, and you reached out to me because I had, was out and about on social media talking about how I do video content and stuff like that. And you reached out to me asking to do some video content, and lo and behold, came out to your office. We worked together for a couple of years, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I have come to deeply admire about you, that I don't know if you get this a lot. I'm sure you do, but to me, it's your ability to be yourself, like without hesitation and with no apologies, but respectfully, right? So like you're very good at like respecting other people's boundaries and that sort of thing. You even asked me like, "Hey, can we curse on here?" And you're like, just not excessively, right? Like it's something simple and silly like that, but I see that, and so. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was like, is that something that's like deep rooted into you? Is it a habit? Like you're just like, I'm going to be myself, and it's maybe not necessarily like, because you're also, in addition to that, one of the kindest people I've ever met, which is a value that I very much like respect. Obviously, it's a big deal to me. But like, yeah, I mean, is that something that you just like think about consciously, or?
I don't. Well, first of all, thank you. It's like it's a super nice thing to be thought of as kind, and to be appreciated for that is awesome. So I appreciate that from you. As far as being myself, it's one of those things that like I can't. I have ADHD. Okay, diagnosed. Like I had it since I was 6. I was medicated from like 6 to 18. When I turned 18, I was like, screw this, I don't need any drugs. And then I got re-prescribed Vyvanse when I was 36. I'm 40 now. And it's one of those things that like I can't keep up a facade. Mm-hmm. Like, you meet people and you hear, oh, they like, especially in dating, like, you keep the mask on for like 90 days or like months,
and then you really meet the person.
The real person.
Yeah,
I don't have a mask, and like it's not because I'm the greatest. It's like I can't keep it up.
Yeah,
like I can't. It's exhausted. Yeah, like when you are performative and you're not authentic to yourself, it just becomes exhausting. Mm-hmm. And like I get it. I'm a very polarizing person. You either like me or you hate me, and that's like. It's really hard for a lot of people to internalize that. I have a lot of friends.
I was going to say, do you have a problem with that?
Me?
Yeah.
No. It is like, I want you to be in one camp. Mm-hmm. You either love me and want more of me, or you can't stand me, and that's exactly how I want it. And I deal with this with my agents and agents that are a friend of mine. They're like, I just want to be nice to everybody. I was like, nice is forgettable. Yeah. Like, I am, like you said, I'm kind, I'm giving. I will give you the shirt off my back if it can help you. Mm-hmm. I'm not nice. Nice is, a Hallmark card is nice. Mm-hmm. Potpourri is nice. Yeah. Like, nice is forgettable. And I think when you don't show up as your authentic self, especially now with how connected and disconnected we are, mm-hmm. people can see right through it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story, and I'm not going to name names because she's a local agent. She doesn't work for me. She never has, and she never will. But she's a good friend of mine, and she came to me. This was probably 3 years ago now, and she goes, I don't know who to turn to. She goes, her mom is a high-performing agent in this area, has been forever, and she is basically her mom's protege, okay? Mm. But she's not like her mom. And she's like, I'm going on these listing appointments, which whenever you go to talk to somebody about selling their house, that's a listing appointment. You're talking about listing their house for sale. It's like the Olympics for being a real estate agent. Like, your time to shine is a listing appointment. You're basically saying, hey, Josh, this is what I can do to help.
The first impression.
Yeah, first impression, and like, you get to show these people like what you're made of and why they should hire you.
Okay.
It's like a job interview.
Yeah, if you're selling yourself at that point to be the agent they go with.
And she's like, I'm going on these listing appointments with my friends, like people that I genuinely consider friends, and I'm not getting them. And I was like, how many? She's like, it's 5 or 6 now. I was like, okay, well, how are you showing up? And she goes, I'm doing exactly what my mom said. I'm dressing professionally. I'm talking in professional language, and I'm just not getting it. I was like, I almost said her name. I was like, you're not that person. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, you are a jeans and T-shirt, sarcastic, swear at your kids kind of girl. So when they see that on social media, and then you show up in a pantsuit and you're all prim and proper, they don't know who to
Something's off.
It's not authentic.
Yeah.
I said, you're not going to like this advice, and you're not going to want to take it, but next appointment, I'm not saying dress sloppy, but dress how you actually dress.
Yeah.
Like a professional version of how you dress. And I was like, just be yourself. Like, be yourself. Talk to them. You can be, there's a way to be professional while still being yourself. And I don't want to say I've mastered it, but I think I've gotten pretty good at it over the years.
Absolutely.
Where you can show up and you can be yourself, and it feels authentic.
Yeah.
She messaged me 6 months later. She's like, you were right. I didn't want to listen to your advice. I haven't missed a listing appointment yet.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And it was like, she's like, I would have never gotten that advice from my mom.
Yeah.
But her mom is the pantsuit and the super professional.
Yeah. And she's probably done it for a long time. So she says, this works, like, staple it into your playbook, and like, this is the way it is.
Yeah. And I also think, conversely, there's a difference between, like, we had a friendship before I listed your house, but when I showed up, I was still professional. Like, I was all business. And I almost think that when you meet with your friends, you have to be almost a little bit more business than if you met with strangers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's definitely a balance.
Yeah. And I think, like, so the whole point of this podcast is it's all about impact, right? Because so for instance, like, I believe that obviously, like, in that specific scenario, the mother was obviously, like, influencing the daughter to be someone who she's not, and then you impacted her to be someone who she is, and lean into that, and that changed the trajectory of her entire business and the way that she conducts herself. And now, because of that, she's probably going to be able to instill that in other people that she comes across that were in the same boat that she was in when you had the conversation with her.
At the end of the day, like, in theory, there's no original thoughts. We are all just the experiences and the education we received from other people. And that's all you can do. And, like,
yeah, I mean, and to me, you know, I've now been in the business world for 12 years, full time, and in my own business for 5 years. But even early on, I got lucky enough or blessed enough to be around people that instilled being myself. Because, you know, I entered into the real estate investing space at 18 years old. Like, that is crazy.
Right.
It's a very, 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 very small percentage of people that do that before 20, before 25. And so I had to really, and at that point, like, I'm instilled in my family, my parents, and you know my parents really well, my parents, my friends, my leaders that I kind of grew up with and that sort of thing, to be yourself and, you know, really, like, lean into that and play your strengths and that sort of thing. And so when I went into it, I don't really struggle with confidence. And so when I kind of got hired into that, I was working in a warehouse and got hired in a real estate investing space and really, like, leaned into my strengths. And my strengths were, like, creativeness and problem solving, that sort of thing. And then as time developed and you start to get deeper into, like, the business and you're, you know, elevating, going into higher level positions, that sort of thing. And then eventually when I went to my own business, I hang out with multimillionaires, people that have ultra successful businesses, making hundreds of millions or even $1 billion+ a year in revenue and that sort of thing. And it can be really intimidating from a standpoint of like, if I shake that person's hand because I meet them at an event, do I need to be wearing a suit and tie, hair combed, smelling good, all that kind of stuff? And to me at this point, I'm just like, it's not that I don't care. It's that they're not, like, I refuse to give them something as a presentation of myself that is not me. Because ultimately, if they do end up working with me in some capacity, they're going to find out anyway. Right? So to me, you know, what I'm wearing right now, you're going to see me out at the gym in this. You're going to see me at home in this. If I go to a mastermind, a business mastermind, you're going to see me in this type of attire. It's respectful, it's comfortable, but it's me. And same thing for you, right? And you got the special shout out to the wear force here. Like we need to get these on camera here. The New Balance 574s. Jeff got those from our sneaker selling business.
Yeah.
Thank you for the support.
Oh, of course, man.
You like them?
I love them. I mean, I've been wearing these shoes since I was like 18, so
yeah.
He calls them old man shoes. He just doesn't know that
those are hip. Those are in right now, dude. My best-selling shoe right now is a 574.
Good. I grew up as a hardcore kid. I've been into metal and hardcore since I was like, I grew up when I was 6 years old. My brother introduced me to Slayer and Metallica, and so like that's how I grew up. And we go to a bunch of hardcore shows, and everyone's wearing 574s. Always have been, and I just have never grown up. So
that's great. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, but like, if I meet a stranger, it's less now. But I used to be like, I'm gonna wear a sweater. I'm gonna cover up my tattoos.
Yeah, we've had this conversation because I've got tattoos as well.
Yeah, if I'm meeting an older couple, I still will wear a sweater because we still, even though it's 2024, we still live in a society where you're getting judged if you have tattoos.
Sure.
That's it.
Sure.
Less with younger people, but they get that for one appointment. And next appointment, it's t-shirt or jeans.
Yeah.
You know, because the first appointment, I want to be able to show my value and, you know, explain that without them being hung up on, he's got tattoos, like, is he the right guy to sell our house?
Sure.
You know, by the second appointment, they've already decided.
They're bought into you. They're bought into your personality and the value you can bring, not what's on your arms.
And at the end of the day, if on the second appointment, they're like, you have two tattoos, we don't want to work with you. Good.
Yeah, I don't want to work with you anyway. Yeah, like, for sure.
If you're going to judge somebody based on how they dress, how whatever, especially something as like insignificant as tattoos. And I'm speaking, obviously, no hateful tattoos, no offensive tattoos, but like all my tattoos are well done, professionally done. They look good. If you're going to judge me based on that, I don't want to work with you.
Of course. At all. Yeah. And that's setting parameters for yourself too. And the way that I look at this is my core values. I talked with Alex about this yesterday. My number one core value is respect. And for me, if you obviously, again, like there's boundaries for everything, but like you said, like no offensive tattoos and stuff like that. But like for me, if somebody doesn't respect like what I've put on my body willingly, then it's like, okay, well, I don't want to work with you in the first place. And in the years that I've done business to this day, now it's different because I work with B2B, but to this day, I've never had one person that I've worked with like mention anything about my tattoos. Like they don't care, you know. So,
but I mean, if anybody's gonna have a problem with tattoos, it's usually an older person.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
yeah. And so, funny story about the tattoos. So, one of the first times that I came, I think it might have been the first time I came over to your office to shoot video. We talked about this because I think you either asked me or you kind of mentioned like, should I wear a long sleeve on video and stuff like that? And I wasn't even like kind of planning on giving you a philosophical like piece of advice or anything, but I was just like, no, because if you have tattoos on video, you're going to have them in person, and vice versa. If you're having them in person, you're going to have them on a video. And it's part of who you are and that sort of thing. And I kind of like, no, just do that. And even to this day, that's a principle that I lean everybody into is like, if you're, you know, in a world of like a crazy amount of influencers, which is, again, the point of this podcast, if you're the type of person that, you know, just today, I got on a call with somebody that was introduced to me by a former client. And this guy from the start, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to work with this guy. And I'm really good at people reading. Like if I could talk to somebody for like 10 seconds and know if this is somebody I'm going to jive with or not. And he was talking about like what he'd like done and that sort of thing, just super scatterbrained. And then he told me, he's like, yeah, you should go check my Instagram because I want to do more videos like this. So I went, and the first thing was like him sitting on a Lamborghini. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. At that point, I literally disengaged the conversation. And I was like, yeah, man, our price is like, and I gave this like outrageous number. He's like, oh yeah, I wasn't really looking to spend that much. I was like, yeah, sorry.
You gave the, what my contractor buddies called the FU pricing, to where you don't want to do it, but if they agree, you'll be like,
that
okay,
it might be worth it. It might be worth it.
And it's funny because I always get told this story by contractors, and they're like, they agreed to my price. So I was like, I had to do it.
That's great. Yeah, I'm going to frame it up that way from now on. But like, it is very rarely that because, I believe that what you put out there is like the attraction to who comes your way. But like, this type of first of all, the client that had referred him, I hadn't worked with him in probably a couple of years. He's good. He's younger than me, a good guy and whatnot. But the guy he sent over is a health and fitness guru and that sort of thing. And it's just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And it was one of those things that like, it wasn't even like, I got the feeling while I was talking to him, not before I looked at his Instagram. Yeah. Like there was, it wasn't like I judged him based off his Instagram. I naturally sometimes do, and that can be a danger sometimes. But this Instagram solidified it.
Right? It's funny because it almost circles back to what you were talking about, like being your authentic self. Like whenever somebody's like, well, I want to be liked by everybody. I was like, that is, first of all, you're not ice cream.
It's tough. Yep.
You're not ice cream. You're not going to be liked by everybody.
Nope.
And like, I always say like, okay, who are the two big tech giants? There's Samsung and Apple. Okay. Apple has like 51% market share. Do you think they give a singular fuck about the Samsung user? Mm-hmm. They are focused so much on the people who are already using Apple and making them as happy as possible. Mm-hmm. And like, I think but I think it comes down to mindset. Like if you have an abundance mindset and you realize that there's an endless amount of people who want to work with Josh or want to work with Jeff in our authentic selves, then you're not worried about the people who don't. There's a lot of people who do not like me. I am so unbothered by that I don't care. I don't care about the people that don't like me because there's so many people who do love me and who do want my advice and who do want my expertise that I'm so focused on those people, not worrying about the people who don't like me.
In your line of work, it is so important to be focused on those people because you're going to be investing a lot of energy, a lot of mind, a lot of your time, and probably money as well into working with that person. So specifically your line of work, people are needy. So it's like,
and you're also seeing them at their most emotional.
It's
one of the 4 or 5 biggest things you can do in life is moving.
Yeah.
And so I always tell my agents, I was like, treat every client like you have, like they're a 9-month pregnant woman, and then you won't get offended. Now, obviously there's boundaries to that. Like you can't call me up and just start.
No disrespect.
Yeah. Be disrespectful. And if somebody one of my clients calls me up and starts screaming at me, I'll say, hey, I want you to call me back when you're calmer. Mm-hmm. And that'll most likely disarm them, and they'll take a breath.
Absolutely.
But I'm not above getting heated, but part of, I guess, the work or growth that I've done is realizing when I'm upset or when I'm triggered or like in emotional state, and then removing myself from that state.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my first mentor taught me is he says, if you freak out, how are your clients not supposed to freak out?
Yeah.
And like, obviously I've been in this business for 11 years. I want to think I've seen almost every situation. So like nothing really surprises me, but like to the people and my clients while we're in it, it's the end of the world. Mm-hmm. So they're going to flip out. And if they call me and I start flipping out, nobody's getting calmed down in that situation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You have to be a voice of reason and a voice of calmness to your clients, especially during buying or selling, because it's super stressful.
In a way, you've been put in like a leadership role for that relationship because they're trusting you with the process of selling their home, with buying their next home, or whatever it is. And obviously, like you said, that's like a super emotional process to go through. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I was going to ask you, how are some of the things that you kind of like go through with managing that type of pressure? But obviously, you've been doing it for so long, and Is it something that's like it's always kind of developing? You're always learning new things that you need to do in order to be able to handle certain situations, or
I think it obviously I'm always learning. There's always a better way to do it. I think the second you say, well, this is how we've always done it, or that's not my job, I feel like that's like just count your days because you're going to be out of business.
Yeah.
Like I work in a super competitive industry. People have so many options for real estate agents. And there's a lot of agents who do a really good job. So like I always have to try and be growing and trying to do things better. And part of that is kind of like setting your ego aside and being like, where could I do better? Like how can I help my clients in a more efficient way? I think I don't want to say I've mastered it, but I've gotten really damn good at it because there's a lot of situations that I think, and it's weird because your transaction has,
I was like, we'll talk about it.
So many landmines. But like part of the value that I have, it's hard to express like why I think I'm a good real estate agent. Part of it is all the shit you're going to avoid. All the stuff that you're not going to have to deal with because I steered you away from it. And it's like when people are like, oh, AI is going to replace real estate agents. I was like, no, not in a million years. No. It might replace some of them. It might cause some
maybe it functions or some sort of to-dos that you have to do, but
it's never like
no.
And it's like I always talk about like when people are selling their house on their own, and I was like, listen, like if you want to save commission, I totally understand. If you don't like realtors because you had a bad experience with one, I totally understand. But like, how many deals where there's a good listing agent and a good buyer's agent and the shit still falls apart?
Yeah.
Well, how are you going to sell it on your own?
Yeah.
Like, you don't even, like, the problem is you don't know what you don't know. And there's so many things like, if I told you, like, if you called me up, you said, hey, I want to buy a house. I need to know everything that goes on. And I told you that in detail, you'd be like, of course I need somebody to hold my hand through that. There's so many moving parts.
Yep.
And I want to be clear. You can sell your house on your own. You can buy your house without an agent. Just don't think it's a good idea. And I remember when I started, and this comes down to mindset. I remember this was my first house with my now ex-wife, and I was making phone calls to people that were selling their house on their own. Now, these are people who have decided to list their house without an agent, and they don't want to pay a commission. And I remember going through this list and being like, yeah, these people shouldn't hire an agent. An agent is $12,000 to sell their house. They absolutely shouldn't do it. How successful do you think I was? And now, I sold my personal primary residence last year. I hired an agent.
Hired an agent for yourself, yeah.
Because my whole mindset towards what an agent does has totally shifted.
Yeah.
And if people ask me, well, why should we hire an agent? It's not because they market your home the best. It's not because they have the best photographers. It's not because they have this, uncanny ability to sell a home. It's because it's a few things. I think the number one thing, and this I don't think is ever talked about, an agent is an unemotional third party.
I was going to say, to me, it's like the way I look at it, the most simple put is it's a detached, unemotional facilitator.
Mm-hmm. I don't care that you've raised your 2 kids and your dogs and you have all these memories. I can appreciate, I can be empathetic, but it doesn't mean that because you have these memories in this house that it's worth $100,000 more than all of the homes that I'm showing you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And part of that is being able to be detached from it. The reason I hired an agent to sell my own house is because I'm too close to it. We had our 3rd daughter in this house. If you don't think I have an emotional attachment to the house, you're just not correct. And so being an unemotional third party, I think, is our biggest asset. And we were talking about this the other day because what value a realtor brings has changed over the years. In the 80s and 90s, the value a real estate agent brought was access to homes. So before homes were listed online, they had these binders. The binders went out every Monday and had all the new listings. So if you didn't get your home listed by Monday, you got to wait till next week. And so you went to an agent and you would walk into a place, like walking into a bank, and you would say, hey, I need a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Cedar Lake. What do you have? So they were the gatekeepers of the information. Now, as the internet came out and the MLS became accessible by, Zillow, Realtor.com, and all those other portals, the information became fair game. And it's funny because so many agents get upset about this. I was like, dude, give me an educated consumer 10 out of 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I want you to know what you're doing. And I'm not above saying I've been in houses with clients who knew more about the house than I did. But you don't hire me to know everything about the house. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a carpenter. I'm there to facilitate the deal and navigate you through the deal. So our job is really always changing, and I don't know.
So to me, the job that you guys have, there's so many ways that you can look at it, but to me, just, impact network. So to me, it's all about the impact that you guys have on this transaction that seems very small when you look at it and never been through it before and you never done, but it's huge. So, I'll give you a perfect example. So we're going to go into this, Jeff. I'm so sorry, but we're going to do it. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but there's a couple lessons that I like and things about you that I learned that I'm like, this is an extremely valuable lesson that I learned from Jeff that I need to implement in my own life. And so there's a long story short. I mean, it's like 2.5 months, 3 months, something like that. And it's been now 2 years last month that this has happened.
That's
so
awesome.
Long story short, I bought a house on Ridge Road in Calumet Township. That would have been 2017, I believe, late 2017. And bought it for pennies on the dollar, fixed it up. It was an older house in an older neighborhood, and did quite a bit to it, but there was quite a bit that we didn't do.
Sure.
And so obviously the market got hot, and we were in a position where we were ready to upgrade our house. Our income was growing from the standpoint from when we bought the house, and it was just a great time to sell. So we decided to get it listed. I had Jeff. Jeff was first name on my list to reach out to and have him, sell our house and then help us find a new one. Long story short, there was a lot of things that I did not know about the house, and you did not know about the house because they were just hidden things that were like, who would ever think of something like that? Because it was such, and the guy that lived in the house before us was a tinkerer. He was a literal inventor. Like when we bought the house, the basement and the garage was full of all of these like machines and inventions that nobody had ever seen before. And so he did a lot of stuff to the house by himself. So there was quite a bit. And the long story short, the interested buyer that was ready to go, we found a house. That was the easiest part of this whole process. And luckily we had the builder who built the house. The guy selling the house was amazing because he was willing to work with us on timelines and everything. But once we were ready to go to closing on selling our house, it was the day before, I think, or it was the day of, maybe the day before.
The day before, thank God.
We got a call.
Did a walkthrough.
Yeah, did a walkthrough, and it was like the electrical box was supposed to be replaced. I misunderstood that part. I thought it was going to be replaced after closing and we would pay for it. And long story short, it's supposed to be replaced before. That set a chain of events that, and then on top of that, I'm a business owner. At the time, only been in business for 3 years. So I have no track record of I had bought the house before. So it was even more difficult to get a mortgage on a property.
When you bought the house the first time, you were
I was an employee. Yeah. And I'd worked for the same company for 8 years.
Buying a house as a W-2 employee is infinitely easier than buying a house as a 1099.
Regardless of how much money you're making.
It does not matter. You could have millions and millions. It doesn't matter. Getting a mortgage while you're 1099 self-employed is infinitely challenging.
It was hard. And so, and I knew and there's, obviously I have lots of friends that are realtors, but I knew Jeff would be the one that would understand me. And so that's why I reached out to you. And I just knew like, okay, well, Jeff's going to be able to walk us through this. And I told Gabby at first, I was like, this is going to be hard, just so you know. And I just didn't expect it to be as hard as it was.
I never expected to be a real estate agent. Once I got into it, I was like, well, I'm going to do this till the day I die. It is the only deal still to this day where I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Yeah.
And like, it was a lot of like, I think there's lessons in everything. I was like, a lot of it was like, we just gotta get through it.
Get through it. That's what you kept telling me.
And like, we just gotta get through it. And like, I think the problem with real estate is that everything can be laid out perfectly. You can plan for everything.
Yeah.
And then at the 11th hour,
there's a possibility, even if I replaced that electrical box, there was still something that they would have picked out because of how nitpicky they were in the first place.
The thing about it, Josh, is that when I walked through your house the first time, you're like, hey, there's multiple layers of shingles on this house.
And they didn't point that out.
I said, yes, let's list it $10,000 higher because you are definitely 100% replacing the roof. They never asked for that. Which, it is what it is. They asked for the house to be painted.
Woody was like $1,500.
And we also had to do it in the middle of February. Like the one day it was like 45 degrees out. Shout out to Melissa for coming through.
Yes.
But there's just so many things that you can't plan for. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to tell you this story. This happened to me Tuesday. As in, today's Thursday. This happened
a couple days ago, yeah.
We had a scheduled closing. Okay. They don't schedule a closing until, in theory, you have a clear to close and, like, everything's lined up. Scheduled closing for Wednesday. I get a call from the lender, who is based out of Arizona, and he goes, hey, I've been doing this for 13 years, and this is the first time this has happened. He goes, we called to get verification of employment, which is basically every lender is going to call and they're going to call your place of work right before closing and make sure you still work there. Very standard. My client would receive a base salary and was also receiving a stipend, you can call it a commission, of about $1,000 a month.
Okay.
She was doing other people's jobs for about a year, okay? And she's like, she told everybody, it was like, hey, I'm buying a house. Like, is this going to continue? Like, we think it's going to continue, okay? So the day before closing, they call and they talk to HR, and HR's like, we can't verify whether or not it's going to continue. They talk to her manager. He's like, I don't feel comfortable verifying it's going to continue. Oh, no. They talked to the CFO. And they said, I'm not comfortable stating if it's going to continue or not. All it had to continue was till May 2nd. And the underwriter literally goes, you do realize if you don't say that you think this is going to continue to May 2nd, she will not get this house. And they still, all three of them independently said, yikes, I can't guarantee you this is going to continue. So that lender was like, we can figure out a different plan. The plan was, we need to get her to a different lender. We need to take her husband off, add her brother on. Like, it's just, and it was like, I was like, how do you plan for that? You cannot plan for that because HR told her when she bought the house, yeah, we're good. We'll verify that you're still getting this income and we'll be fine. Right. And then when it came down to it, all they cared about was covering their own ass. And it's like, I can't believe that people would do that. And like, I was like, and so we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it extended probably 15 days. We switched lenders, but it's like, you can't plan for that.
Dude, so you're telling this story, and then on top of my story is like, the thing that's coming to my mind is like, it may be a superpower that you don't even know that you're not aware of, is your big problem solver. No. Like, you have a very, very good ability to solve problems. And again, it goes back to the unemotional part. And I want to kind of circle this back because there's a couple things that I want to take away from like the deal that you did with us is like that. And that's a good like parallel example as well, because during the process of us going through that, you know, it was strung out and everything. And I know we joke about it now, but man, it sucked for all of us. Like, and you know, I can't speak on the other party or whatever, but every time I talked on a phone call with you, you know, I stressed out and freaked out a few times on a phone call, and I never got anything but like unemotional problem-solving responses from you.
And it's not like, I want to be clear, I'm not being cold.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like, hey.
It was very clear that you were there to help me.
And that was a big deal. What did I tell you all the time? I said, listen, we just got to get through this.
You get through it.
In 2 months, you're going to be sitting on the couch with your dogs, laughing at how ridiculous it is.
Yep.
But when something traumatic happens to you, which this was traumatic. It was a intense, everything went wrong all at once. Mm-hmm. You can't laugh about it while you're in it.
Yeah.
Because you can't separate yourself from it. That's the worst thing in the world. But now you look back at it, it's hilarious. And the crazy thing is, you don't even remember like probably all the details.
No.
There's so much more that you forgot and that I forgot because at the end of the day, it was just a real estate transaction that was super bumpy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that they issued a check to you,
yes,
your wife, and your dad? And you couldn't cash it.
And I couldn't cash it out.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back.
And it was like this is like problem 15 at the end. We've already closed, and then Chase puts a stop on the check. It's just like that stuff.
Yep.
Like it's hilarious now.
Yep.
When it happened, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe there's another thing.
Yeah.
But it's like tell people all the time. At the end of the day, if you still wanted the house, you still wanted to sell the house. Let's figure it out.
And not everybody's going to be able to handle the problems the way that you were able to, which is like, and that's kind of like the full circle of the story too, is that like whether you plan to do this or like, I think that the difference in a great, not just realtor, but business owner, a great person is the intentionality of like, not just getting the job done, but getting it done where you still have a happy customer. I could have easily been so unhappy, even though you're a friend of mine, personal friend. I could have walked away and be like, I'm never working with Jeff again.
Yeah.
Like I could have, but none of it was your fault. In addition to it, even though it wasn't your fault, you still took responsibility to help me through the problems. And whether you know it or not, that whole process and that cycle impacted mine and Gabby's life. Like it's one of the biggest moments of impact that we've ever had in our life because there was a home that we desperately wanted. We fell in love with it the first time we stepped into it. You were there with us, or Lisa was there with us, and obviously you knew how much emotional investment that we had into it. And to this day, it's like it was that, or we wanted to move away from family. We found this house, chose to be here. Now my parents, my sister, and her family live 15 minutes away in Crown Point. Mm-hmm. Gabby's family still lives a little far away, but if we didn't get that house, we were probably moving 4 hours away, 5 hours away, 6 hours away. So we wouldn't be close to family. So the impact level that one deal had on me and the ability to live in a home that we love and we know that we can be there for a long time. And we love Cedar Lake. We love it. It was not what we expected it to be.
No.
Like immensely greater than what we thought it was going to be. And that like influenced our lives. Now we can live, it's funny because like a lot of times you don't really think about like where I live, the neighborhood and stuff like that. But I just feel like life's easy there. It really feels that way. And that allows me to do my thing. I'm not having to fix up stuff at the house because the previous house we lived in, there were so many things that had to be done to it that I've wasted time on and that sort of thing. And so just your ability to get us through that. And this is what I talk about is you impacting me in my life and freeing me up from a lot of that stuff allow me to impact other people's lives in the process, or even now and going to do that. And some lessons I learned from you from that whole process, and like your ability to solve problems without getting emotional, even though you could have been emotional, and then helped us throughout that time.
I want to be clear. I was fucking.
You were. I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were wrecked.
To Lisa,
I'm sure.
This is fucking awful. So it's like, and it's not that like I can't be emotional. I think I did a pretty good job of like empathizing. Like, hey,
at your point of view, stayed professional. That was the
like,
point.
At the end of the day, like I always like when things get shitty and tough, I'm just like, hey, you still want the house? And you were like, yeah,
of course. Yeah, it was very simple questions.
And if you said no, kill the deal, kill both.
Let's go find something else. Yeah.
Move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you want the house, okay, this is annoying, this is frustrating, but let's get through it.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know where I got the skill. I think a lot of it was like dealing poker. I dealt poker for 8 years.
I was going to ask if that had anything to do with it.
It is. I think dealing poker and selling real estate have so many parallels. It's wild,
Really?
because you learn so many things. Because you don't. The best thing of working in a casino ever taught me was never judge anybody by how they look. It's the worst.
Anybody could be a winner. Anybody could be a loser.
Well, I mean, look at social media. Like the guys that flashy and have the Lambos. Those Lambos are rented. They live with their parents. They're in debt up to their eyeballs. The guys that drive the Honda Accord got millions in the bank. The guys who are wearing the dad New Balances. Yeah, those are the cash buyers. Yeah. So it's like I remember this story. I'll remember this story forever. When I first started the casino, I basically was a host. You come in the poker room and I would see you. And casinos have the weirdest patrons in the entire world. You're going to meet people from all walks of life. But the regulars, the guys that are there like 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, they're weird. Like most people are working. Like the regulars are just weird. And there was this dude, I'll never forget it. His name is David. And he would always had this greased back hair, always had like this permanent like 5 o'clock shadow. Always looked like he just woke up from like a 3-day-long bender, no matter when you saw him. And he came in, he always had this busted up windbreaker that he probably had for 20 years. And I remember once he were like just talking and he just casually pulls out a stack of chips and there's like 20 of them. And I looked at him because I try to notice everything. He just had $20,000 on him, just casually. And I was like, what have you been doing? He's like, well, I was playing some baccarat. And I was like, I've never seen this guy play a hand of poker. He'd always come and like hang out around the poker room. Never played a hand of poker. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, we got to talk and we became friends. Like, he would just always come around. And one day he's like, yeah, I won the lottery. I got about $100 million like a couple years ago. And I was, what? Are you kidding me? I remember looking at him like,
so that's why he comes in at 3 o'clock.
So I was like, so that $20,000 is like $20 to me. And I was like, you know what? Like, that's one of those moments where you're like, okay, I'm not going to judge.
Oh, God, that's hilarious.
And it was like, wow, so many situations like that. And like you're dealing with people from all different cultures and they're all mixing together because there's 9 of them around the table and you've got to police everybody. And one of the things I learned, 2 things. And it's funny because I learned this from my mentor because I started dealing poker in 2000. I got my job in the casino in 2007, moved here in 2008, started dealing poker in 2009. I got licensed to sell real estate at the end of 2013. So I was doing both for about 3 years. And my first mentor, who was my first broker, Bart Vickery, who I love, Bart's still in the Valpo market, he had me read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And just to surmise it, it's basically a book about having a positive mental attitude and manifesting the things that you want out of life. And it was weird because, like, I'm like, how can I understand how it would work toward real estate. Like, how can I make it work towards dealing poker? And I was like, you know what? What is the problem with most people in a poker room? The staff, the clientele, everyone's miserable. Okay. Poker players inherently are miserable people. Yeah. They're always, because it's a game of, if you're happy, you're showing emotion, then you're giving off some tells or you're indicating the strength of your hand. Okay. Everyone is just sitting there like this.
Okay. The poker face.
Yeah. And like they're gambling. So like if inevitably they're losing money,
they're not going to be happy about it.
They're not very happy about it. And so the problem is it wears off on the staff. So like, it's like this weird and negative feedback loop. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I decided this in like 2014. I'm going to go to work and I'm going to be insanely positive and not in a rah, tell me a little bit about yourself positive way, but like, we're going to have a good time. Yeah. I'm going to needle you. I'm going to make fun of you. We're going to have banter back and forth. I'm also going to know when to shut up. Yeah. Because I think that's an important discussion, especially when it comes to poker. Because like, I mean, I've dealt hands that were $50,000, $80,000. Like, this is serious money. You know, you need to know when to shut up. Yeah. Which is one of those skills that I just kind of inherently had. But beyond being positive, it was, I'm going to take accountability for everything that happens at this table. And so no matter what happened, no matter if it's your fault or if, and I didn't make mistakes. Like this sounds super arrogant. I was a great dealer. I probably have made less than 10 technical mistakes in the 8 years I dealt poker.
Oh, wow.
Okay. The only time I would really ever make a mistake is if I interpreted you doing something. So in poker, if you're passing on your opportunity to bet, you're checking, okay? And you can say check or you can tap the table.
Okay.
So a lot of times, people, when the action's on them, they may involuntarily go like this just because people are...
You have to be aware of that.
And I have to interpret that as, is that a check or is that you having a nervous tick because you're thinking?
Yeah.
And so the times where I would make a mistake, like expose a card too early because I interpreted your tapping the table as a check, they're like, well, I didn't check. And so instead of saying, yeah, you did, you went like this, I said, you're right, let me call the floor. Let me fix this. Because if I yell
it's that problem-solving gene that's kicking in at that point.
It's taking accountability.
Yeah.
I can get in a screaming match with you about whether or not you checked. You believe that you didn't check.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I say, oh, you absolutely checked, what am I doing? I am pissing you off.
Yeah.
And I'm heightening the cortisol
experience is bad.
of everyone at the table because now I'm getting an argument. Now they know if they make a mistake, if they have an involuntary reaction, just going to yell at them.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let me call the floor or let me fix it. Now, it's not a great situation when a card gets exposed prematurely, but I'm making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
And what do we want? We want all 9 people at the table to have a good time.
Yep.
Because if they had a good time, they're going to gamble more aggressively. They're going to have bigger pots. They're going to come back, and they're going to tip you up.
Yeah.
And it's, I would make a good living because I was proficient. But once I said, I'm going to be positive, we're going to have a good time, and I'm going to take accountability, it was like, wow, game over.
That's incredible.
And you just extrapolate that to your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, no matter what goes on in your life,
yeah,
you're right. Well, let's fix it.
Yeah.
You know?
I should have talked to you about this stuff way before this podcast. That is so cool. I never even would have thought of that, because I think a lot of people take like that kind of, self-development, stuff like that. It's only for business owners. It's only for people that are in the business world, but it's for everyone. And that's the point of this podcast though, right? It's like, I'm going to make it very clear to people that this isn't just for people that own businesses. This is going to be for anybody, everyday life type, people that maybe you're just working a corporate job or you're working manual labor or whatever, like listen to this podcast because your impact can impact other people in a very positive way, which is a big deal.
I think it was funny. I was like, because you asked me to be on this, 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know what it was about. I didn't ask any questions. And I was like, so I go to therapy every week. I've gone to therapy for the last 5 or 6 years. I think that it's funny because I was talking to my therapist who is a 69-year-old hippie who started therapy the year I was born, 1984. And he's like, the stigma that I got as a male going to therapy, they thought I was an alien back in the 80s. And I was like, that stigma still exists. Like, I remember I talked about going to therapy and a bunch of my friends were like, don't talk about that. It's like, why? They're like, well, you're going to alienate some of your people. I was like, listen, if somebody doesn't want to work with me because I go to therapy, fuck them. Yeah. Like, I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
But there's still this stigma that men going to therapy is weird. Yeah. And I was like, I go to therapy on Tuesdays. It's in the middle of the workday. And I was like, and I'm thinking about my day. It's like, is therapy helping my business? And I realized therapy has single-handedly helped my business more than any book I've read, more than any podcast I've listened to, more than anything. Maybe the experience doing these deals, but therapy, like I know how to talk to people. I know how to interpret people's actions. I know how to not take things personally. I knew how to not freak out, but like I know how to be empathetic and problem solve. Yeah. And it's like this stuff, like it applies to everywhere in your life. It's not just business. It's everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, it's been an hour already.
Has it?
It's crazy.
It's wild.
Yesterday when I interviewed Alex, We got to the end of like, whoa, that went quick.
So quick, man.
We got to wrap it up. Dude, I am so appreciative of everything that you shared. There's a lot of vulnerability that you presented, a lot of just like good, wholehearted facts and things that people need to hear in their everyday life. And once again, like the whole purpose of this podcast is to highlight people that are what I will call impactors. There's lots of influencers in the world, but impact drives deeper and it can create a whole hell of a lot more ripples with people. And, you know, you need to know that you're somebody that's impacted my life in multiple different ways. I hope that I have done the same for you.
Absolutely.
And in turn, you impacting my life has been able to impact other people's lives, you know, along the way. So thank you for coming out here all the way from Valpo and spending some time here. And
it was awesome.
Hopefully I'll have you back again soon.
I love it, dude.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And we're going to leave all of the places down below for you to be able to contact Jeff and get connected with him and that sort of thing. So make sure you check that out in the show notes. And thank you guys for watching. You have been listening to the Impact Network, and I'll see you on the next one.